Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our webcast, our Inefficiencies, Sabotaging Your Marketing Strategy and ROI with Aaron Gorin, founder of Matrix Point. We're delighted to have you with us. CEO Coaching International coaches thousands of CEOs and their leadership teams around the world in over 80 countries worldwide. During the presentation, you are in chat-only mode. As the discussion unfolds, feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A. And now it is with great pleasure to introduce and hand things over to one of our very own talented coaches and marketing expert, Pascal Brochier.
Hello and welcome to our webcast today on our Inefficiencies, Sabotaging Your Marketing Strategy and ROI. My name is Pascal Brochier and I'm a partner and coach with CEO Coaching International. CEO Coaching International is a CEO coaching firm that has worked with over 1,000 CEOs and entrepreneurs across the world. We are the coach of the business and we have proven with our results. Our 2023 performance results just came in and show that clients with us for 2 years or more experience a 2.6x revenue growth and 5x EBITDA growth versus the US average. We know that our methodology and tools drive big business growth. I've been fortunate to run startups and large organizations when marketing always played a key role to fuel our growth. From launching and building World of Warcraft to a billion-dollar franchise, to growing Bronze electric oral care business from 40 million to 400 million in 5 years, being thoughtful and disciplined about our marketing investment was critical to our success to reach, engage, and monetize our audience effectively. To quote John Wanamaker, one of the forefathers of marketing, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half." It is as true today as when he said it 100 years ago. The topics we will be covering in this webcast will help you identify which 50% and provide thoughts and how to address these inefficiencies in your marketing. So I'm excited to hold this webcast today with one of our diamond strategic partners, Matrix Point Consulting. And I'd like to welcome Aaron Gorin. Aaron is the founder and managing partner of Matrix Point. He has extensive experience in marketing and analytics and a deep understanding of how technology is revolutionizing customer acquisition and retention. At Matrix Point, Aaron and his team focus on addressing critical pain points, optimizing resources, identifying growth opportunities, and increasing efficiencies. Aaron has been an active member of YPO Orange County chapter for 14 years. Now, I'll turn things over to Aaron to discuss these inefficiencies, sabotaging your marketing strategy and ROI.
Thank you so much, Pascal. It's a pleasure to be here. We'll jump right into it. The 3 areas we're going to focus on today are be more efficient and effective with your marketing strategy, transform weakness into strengths, and safeguard your growth and profitability. And we'll dig into each one of these and discuss both strategies and examples of how we've approached this.
So the first area with which marketers often take a misstep is targeting, identifying the customer with the highest propensity to buy today and tomorrow. Aaron, can you take us through 6 aspects you consider overcoming targeting misalignment?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, what we typically see around marketing strategies are things around targeting around demo and behaviors, segmentations, targeting from a geography standpoint, leveraging technology to better understand your customer base, understanding from a vendor relationship, what are those elements that you own versus what they own? Do you have a clear transparency? So we'll dig into every one of these strategies here in more depth.
Yep. So the need to do more with less is only growing. Rising costs across all operations of a company make it critical to ensure your sales are optimized. So how do we drive greater sales when functional pressures are limiting the budgets you can allocate to marketing? Be
So,
smarter and more strategic with it. Yeah.
oh, sorry, go
So
ahead, go
be
ahead.
so is it being smarter and more strategic with every marketing dollar? Can you highlight the core ways to ensure budgets are laser focused on achieving their goals while addressing limited funds?
So let me kind of dig into how we look at this from when we're doing our analysis, we come into a client relationship. Often what we start identifying is around the targeting of their audience. What we see is a lot of times clients believe or assume who their right customers are. And once you start digging in and start really analyzing and doing segmentation work, you start identifying that either there's additional nuances to every one of their target clients that you can break them even to further categories, or sometimes they're completely off from who they think their customers are. And when that happens, you're obviously you're spending your money ineffectively. You're reaching audiences that potentially are not your right target audiences, or you're not providing the right messaging around that particular target audience. In addition, the one that we always see is the geography targeting. If you're a retailer, you've got a location and you're trying to target a customer to come into that location, we often see this kind of common 10-mile radius strategy that gets implemented. In today's world, that's not very efficient. You should be able to really understand where your customers are coming from geographically. We look at this as trading zones, and really understanding the trading zones of every location is unique. An example we like to utilize is, if you look at Omaha, Nebraska versus New York, you can't utilize the same mile radius as number one. And if you do, you obviously are going to reach a much broader base in New York, where people are not going to come to your location 5 miles. They're not walking 2 blocks. Versus in Omaha, Nebraska, you may have someone that will be willing to drive 10, 15 miles to a location. So we often use examples to clients to really look at where are the existing customers coming from, and targeting those specific locations, and then identifying if there's similar type of customers and going back to that behaviors and demographics and other zip codes and other narrower locations that we can target. So that's an example of where you think about inefficiencies of either your audience size, where you're not really targeting the right audience, or you're not breaking that audience further into nuances that are important to them. And separately is the geography, having waste of money because you're leveraging the same radius around every location. The other segment, as we talk about kind of that segmentation, it's really understanding that audience. So as an example, Potbelly is one of our clients, which is a QSR. And they have multiple audiences, and their audiences are also interact in different times with the brand. So as an example, there is the business customer, there is the general customer, there is the catering customer. So we really want to deliver messaging by day and time and by different content to each one of their target audiences. And it's very important because otherwise the message doesn't resonate with them. The other is competition. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Really, you should understand what your competition is doing, how they're achieving it. Should you replicate it? Should you counter it? So we often really dig into understanding what type of media channels the competition are utilizing, what type of messaging they're utilizing, what's that process flow look like to reach an audience. So we definitely want to make sure that we understand how the competition is interacting with their customers and take advantage of that learning. An area that simply that we kind of understand is the market demand. If you're rolling out a new product, a new service, really understand that demand in the market. Often us founders tend to say, because we feel someone wants our product or service, we build it out, but without really digging in and understanding that demand out there. And that demand has to mean of not only who is it that's going to be buying it, how scalable is it? So really understanding and testing out the demand in the market before you build out a product or service. And then be able to pivot from there, obviously, if you're not achieving those specific goals of building a product. I'll leave you with an example of one of the things that we've done from looking at those behaviors and being able to make adaptation. One of our clients is Crunch Fitness. And post-COVID, what we started identifying, there was a higher percentage of male versus female going into the gym. Now, why is that important, not important data point? The gym did not, the owner of the Crunch Fitness decided that they did not want to be a male-dominated gym. They wanted to be a 50-50. And so in that analysis, we had to shift all of our targeting and all of our strategy to help guide them to increasing a female percentage of their members to get it to back to a 50-50 ratio. And they have done that. And so what happens is that basically the brand itself, so the reputation, everything will be impacted if they weren't analyzing on a consistent basis their existing customer base. And we do that through looking at their CRM, we look at developing loyalty programs and so on to really define who those customers are.
Yeah, so maybe to recap, if I was to ask people watching this, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good their current targeting is, just pause for a second and reflect on what Aaron just shared and just try to score your targeting currently. How good is that? A scale of 1 to 10. Let's just move to the efficiencies of the funds. So we have so much pressure currently to do less with more. Can you share with us, Aaron, how do we optimize the dollars invested in marketing? What do we need to look at?
So this is probably one of our more challenging points to when we interact with clients. Really understanding what we identify is upper versus lower funnel. Often when we start an engagement with a client, the question is, how do we scale? And often clients utilize lower funnel strategies like paid search, sometimes paid social, and those have very strong ROIs. But there is a point of diminishing return. And you have to understand that point of diminishing return and the next dollar investment, where that should go. And that next dollar investment is not going to generate you the same ROI as your lower funnel strategies, but it starts giving you scale. You're starting to be able to develop new customers. Yes, the return is not going to be as great on them, but over time, your goal is that you will overtake your competitors. Your brand will be recognized. And so as an example of this, we have an auto parts client that we're advising currently, that an aftermarket auto parts, and they're maximize their paid search. They do a fair amount of spend around branded terms, around product terms, but they're done. They cannot achieve that 800% ROI in any other channel. And so they're now continuously looking at how do we get more? Every time they went into testing paid social, display ads, video ads, whatever media strategy, and never give them that return. So they pause. Our approach to them is to help educate the internal infrastructure and the internal teams to understand that they need to invest in what we call mid to upper funnel. Mid to upper funnel are elements that are not going to give you the same ROI, but they help you build that brand. It helps you over time capture more organic traffic. It capture basically what your competitors are gaining. And so you have to, if you want to scale, you're going to have to invest beyond that point of diminishing return and be able to start capturing new customers that are either going to your competitors or not familiar with your brand at all. So that's the first one that we really dig into. The other is the effectiveness of media channels. We go into a lot of our clients and ask, they'll position themselves as, we're doing a lot of marketing. And our first question is, what does that mean? What is a lot of marketing? And often it's, oh, we do a lot of paid social posting, we do this, and we do that. And then you look at this is not a very diversified strategy. So to us, is you have to look at what is a real diversified plan, and what is that most effective diversified plan? So yes, you do want to maximize your lower funnel strategies, and you want to start adding additional channels into that. We're big believers that loyalty type of programs, CRM marketing is great and should be maximized. However, that typically doesn't generate new customers. It is to your existing customers. So you want to add more customers into CRM, and the way you do that is through paid channels. Typically, you do paid channels. So the strategies have to be truly a blend of what's the most efficient and continue to optimize against those components of it. And the last one in terms of budget and managing best is in-housing, right? Often clients want to reduce cost and they feel either a vendor or agency or freelancers charge too much, or they could do things better. This is a complex conversation. That could be correct in certain instances, it could be incorrect in other instances. And what we see is that companies don't necessarily do the right diligence and the right process in making that evaluation. And what I mean by that is, if you think about the pros is, yes, you own that process, that individual works for you, they're able to move quickly, you can walk down the hall and have someone do work, you get transparency, and potentially you get savings. But there are a lot of cons to that. There is what we call the deep bench, right? If you hire 1 or 2 people, what if someone leaves? They leave with their knowledge and now you're stuck. Sometimes the cost, when you do a cost comparison of what you pay a vendor or an agency, ends up being significantly lower than what you think when you're hiring people. The other one is knowledge. Typically when you work with a vendor or an agency, they have deeper knowledge because they have multiple clients and they co-share that knowledge across the board. And the other is technology. To be effective, you need to invest money in technology. Typically, your vendor or agency would have technology that they've already utilized, and they're continuing to evolve with other technology. To be able to do that in-house, you've got to have enough scale. So what I'm going to leave you with on the in-housing conversation is you have to do the right evaluation of all your cost structure in terms of hiring, technology, data, and then obviously a risk associated with someone leaving versus utilizing a partner, agency, or a vendor. So that typically is a challenge that clients start utilizing, bringing in-house, and then all of a sudden pivot very quickly back into using an agency or vendor. And there isn't a right or wrong answer in this. We believe that there's individuals that could do a really good job in certain roles. So you could hire someone to do one specific thing and still use a partner agency.
Yeah, so I've seen this across the portfolio of companies and startups that I've been involved with, where you have some operators who don't know what they don't know, and they hire an intern because it's cheap, and they get them focused on organic because that's easy, and then they miss out and they feel like they're being efficient, but they are being terribly inefficient because they are missing out a big chunk of the unlocking the potential, including either hiring or working with some of the experts who know what they don't know. And this is bets, and these are investments that need to be very thoughtful. And the same way you do this on products, where you take risk and you develop product features, you need to think about marketing as an investment that you obviously track and hold yourself accountable, but you got to take some risks because not everything is, as long as you can move fast, right?
Yeah.
And iterate.
And listen, it's the concept of you get what you pay for, right? And if it's just about cutting cost, make sure that you're doing it in the right way. You've really done that due diligence and that analysis to figure out if this makes sense. And sometimes it does. It really sometimes does make sense to some components and to bring in-house. Maybe, as I said, not all those elements, but you got to make sure that if you're wanting to scale, don't do it in the sake of reducing some cost that is actually not is detrimental to that growth and that scalability.
Yeah. And so one area that I think you're gonna tell us a little bit about is that sometimes people feel they found a gold mine as one channel that works, and they get stuck into it. So have you seen this? And like, it's so easy to put Instagram or meta ads, and then you get to a point of saturation. So what about channels? How are you thinking about channels?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. And this is a common problem in the past few years. What we've seen is a lot of direct-to-consumer brands really struggle because they were very dependent on influencer marketing, as an example. We've worked with a brand that was a smaller beauty product company, very successful for a long time in generating revenue only on influencer marketing. And day one when we came in, our feedback was you need to diversify. If you cannot be what we call is that one-trick pony. Because what happens if Meta changes their algorithm? And guess what happened? Meta changed their algorithm. And then literally overnight, all the DTC brands that were so heavily focused on influencer marketing plummeted. Their sales just completely crashed. That holds true to if you're just an Amazon company product, or if you are just leveraging paid social or paid search, you're very limited, and there's a lot of high risk in there. And we recommend to definitely diversify. For one is, it's obviously going to give you scale. The other, it reduces your risk. And if you're looking at an exit, if you're looking for investors, that's one of the areas that we actually, when we work with private equity firms, we advise on. One of the first things that we do is we look at, is this brand able to scale? How are they going to scale? Have they proven themselves that they're able to scale? And if they can't, there's a huge risk factor, because someone can buy it out. And as I said, one algorithm change with Amazon or Meta or Google can quickly eliminate everything that you've done from a business standpoint. And the value of that business literally plummets. So definitely recommend a lot of test and learn, ensuring that you've got a diversified marketing strategy, that you utilize multiple channels.
Right. So you covered earlier in-house versus vendors, and should we talk a little bit about vendors? So how do you, whether you work with a lot of outside vendors or very few, how do you assess whether your vendors are overcharging you or under-delivering, or that you actually have teamed up with the right vendors, not just from a cost standpoint, but from a fit and from adding value to your business? How do you assess those?
So typically our engagements, a lot of times our engagements start off here, really helping brands, clients identify, are they using the right vendors? Do they have the right contracts in place? And by that, what we mean is the right contract is, do they have transparency? Often what you look at and you see is that companies don't know what they don't know. That means that they don't own that data, they don't own the technology. If you look at those contracts, that vendor basically owns everything. And so that's the number one, is that we like to make sure that the ownership of data and technology resides with our clients. That's very important, because you can go change your vendors and agencies and partners any day. But if you change them and that data goes away with them, you're starting from scratch. And that happens a lot. The other is that there's a little trick in this whole space where different media channels have hidden fees in them. And by the way, this impacts small and large companies, right? Very sophisticated entities that you would think would have an understanding of every fee and control, they don't. So I utilize programmatic media as one of those that has a very significant revenue stream for agencies. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to make sure that you know what that fee is. When you go in and you can say, hey, you should be getting paid this, not that, and negotiate that. And that's when we start talking about fairness and value and ensuring a win-win relationship. So we're not anti, a lot of times we come in and clients think we're anti-agencies, or agencies think we're anti-agencies. We are not, right? We actually are in there to establish a fairness and value for our clients and the agency. If the agency is doing a good job from actually at planning, strategy, execution, there just needs to be a fair term between those two. But as a client, number one is make sure you own your data. You know you own your data, own those platforms, whatever platforms they're leveraging, you have access, it's your ownership. If you terminate that relationship, you're not losing that. Look at those contracts. Number two is make sure you know the fees that you're really paying. Gets a little tricky because some of the things don't have that transparency. Ask for transparency. Have an honest conversation with them, because that's going to open up a better long-term relationship. And you don't want to go in and just look at negotiating down. Make sure that you understand what that cost associated with running that business. And that goes to that fairness and value. We think that there is more labor associated with certain technologies and certain management. Just reducing fees doesn't mean you're going to get the best results. You may think you're reducing your cost. You're really not. because that partner is going to figure out how to make money somewhere else. That's just the name of the game. Everybody needs to be able to generate revenue. They're a company. Then simply is actually looking at the data, the platforms. The platforms themselves are complex. So when I say own that complex, that contract or that technology, it may mean that just contractually that your partner can actually be managing that, right? The tech stack, you may not have the internal resources, that's fine. But make sure that at least contractually, those contracts belong to you, be it a data management platform, a CRM, demand side platform. I know I'm throwing a lot of lingo out there, but these are all technologies that are getting utilized in your marketing activities. And those are technologies that you want to make sure at the end of the day that you know what you're paying for or what is getting paid for by your partners that you have control over.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Can you maybe, we're a little bit on the side note here. Many of the smaller size startups and companies haven't had a lot of experience working with vendors. And so what would be a healthy way outside of looking at the contract? Also, isn't there, and maybe you can touch on this, isn't there an important element of the brief and setting objectives and aligning on what success looks like at the beginning so that you go in with clear expectations of this would be success, or that you're not just going on a ride because you have a valuable partner, but you have never really defined what success looks like for you. For me, from my experience, that's always been like a pretty important element of the relationship. Can you touch on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are really big believers in having a very defined scope of work. We want to ensure when our clients engage with a third party that there's a clear scope of work of deliverables, timelines against those deliverables. And then in scope of work, you may want to include things around cost. You may want to include things around goals to achieve. A little hard sometimes to hold their feet to the fire, but you want to make sure that that information is in there, that at least everyone's working towards the same thing. If not, depending on how you're paying, we see this all the time, right? If it's an hourly rate, well, at that point, they're just overcharging on hours, the deliverables are not being met, and then it becomes a conflict. And the results are never going to be met. If it's a percentage of spend, which is what we call commission on the media, there tends to be a lack of, depending on how much spend there is, you have to understand how many hours are something going to go into. So I'll give you an example. If you're spending $20,000 a year in marketing, and you were paying 15%, which is probably for that spend level is correct. If you think about how much money is being made by that partner and how much work goes in, you have to evaluate, does that really make sense? How are they really making money? You know, from the time they have to spend on setting up the campaigns, optimizing the campaign, reporting on the campaigns, billing on the campaign, it's going to be more than $3,000. Even if they just offshore the whole thing, it's going to be more than $3,000. So you've got to really understand what else is potentially making money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no free lunch here for anyone. And so when understanding the other side is what you're saying, is what I'm recapping, so that it's a win-win on both sides is where it's going to lead somewhere. If you're trying to get to a win-lose where you screw your agency, they also have to live and make money. And so that's not going to work over the long run. That alignment, yeah.
Oh, no, I was saying we have clients or agencies that we work with, that we help them basically figure out how to make sure it's a win-win between them and their clients.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one example of this is that usually when you onboard a new client from an agency perspective, so just keep in mind that this is going to hold true if you're in-house or you use a third party. There's a learning curve of the business. There's a learning curve on the platform. So things take time to actually run correctly. If we go into an engagement and we hear, oh, that we've been working with them for a month, they're not delivering. I will tell you from a client perspective, our first comment is you got to give them at least 3 to 6 months before you'll see true results. Partially, it's not even anything to do with the entity. All the platforms, which we'll talk about shortly, are AI driven. and those take time to learn. Machine learning takes time. And so that process is 2, 3, 4 weeks, and you can't speed that process up. And so there's nothing that they can do faster to make your results better. You have to go into any relationship, again, in-housing or third party, and give it ample time to be successful.
Yeah, great. So this is a big area. It's data and technology utilization. We know we need to have the right data for which to drive insights that can more deeply connect the brand, the company with the customer. So tell us about how to think about the processes, the procedure to ensure that we get to have the right data. And then there's a hidden question here that I'm guessing it's on everybody's mind, is that AI is on the horizon, it's here, it's gonna happen. How do we build that into our data and technology utilization? Can you help us understand how from a small to mid-sized to larger organization we should think about data and technology utilization?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with the first, is the reporting. This is a challenge for small and large companies, and we continuously see this being one of those that data is stored in so many different locations, and to aggregate that data to actually make sense of it is relatively complex, but it's solvable. And we want our clients to think about it at having an ultimate goal, developing an ultimate, what is it that you want to have from a reporting or dashboard access to be able to view, right? And by the way, it can include just your marketing and include things around inventory and other elements that will help you better operate your business. And so if you set up this ultimate goal of what you want your reporting dashboards, your systems to look like, you then have to start thinking about it in pieces. You have an ultimate goal, and then you start taking it into components. We like the ones around media marketing performance, media spends, and sales and revenue ROI generated. Those are relatively simpler solutions to set up. There's a lot of third-party platforms that are already plugged into various systems you may utilize. If you use Shopify, or obviously if you're utilizing Google or Meta or any of the or Amazon, they already have what we call an API, a way to pull that data in real time and set that reporting system. So we recommend to start there, because even from there, you automatically can start looking at, how do I optimize? Am I getting the right ROI? What should be changed? And you're seeing this in real time. Don't wait for a report from a vendor or even internal to take a week in a spreadsheet that has typically errors in that spreadsheet if you really look at the cells and the formulas utilized. So we recommend to move into a real-time dashboard. They're not expensive. Again, they're off-the-shelf solutions, right? And this is purely reporting. Now, you want to get to a place that's going to be a lot more sophisticated. And this goes into the component of, we hear about AI and technology and machine learning. That's all great, but part of our process and our machine learning AI portion of our practice is evaluating these third-party solutions. And unfortunately, there's a lot of talk around AI and machine learning, but when you dig under, you look under the hood, majority of these companies are really not AI or machine learning. They changed their name in the past year and a half because everything is about AI, but they're not necessarily sophisticated. So we're back into the world of, is there kind of that customized AI solution that's not going to be an expensive product for me to utilize or service to utilize? And there are a lot of entities out there starting to provide custom AI solution in specific categories, right? So if you're talking about, I need my inventory management, or I want to look at how to optimize my marketing or developing messaging. Even on messaging, you can use ChatGPT. It'll give you a lot of variations, and that's a very inexpensive solution. And so we believe that you really have to do the due diligence on what platform you want to utilize. What is that goal that you're trying to achieve with that, and break it into pieces. Don't try to go accomplish the whole, because it will be a project that will never end. And the last thing you want is to go down that path and all of a sudden 6 months or 12 months and a lot of money spent, you're not achieving that result, the success that you were hoping for. And now you're back at square one. So our approach is, have an ultimate goal, identify how to get there through different technologies that exist, make sure they're sophisticated, and to make sure you've got the right resources, either internally or externally, that can help you. Now, with that, make sure that, again, those resources that you bring on board, if they're third party, anything that's generated from them, anything that they're building, you own. They're not working within their environments. They're not working on some technology that you have no ability to take over. We've seen that to happen. We've seen that even as simple as websites, where the technology is a very unique technology, and then the client has to go rebuild a website when they end the relationship, or they're basically hijacked because they have to work with that particular vendor to help manage their website. And you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. And we often say in our coaching practice, on big problems, I mean, we really love to encourage people to think big, and sometimes it looks a little bit overwhelming. And our saying very often is, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And it's true that it's got to be broken into smaller pieces that you feel you can make progress on, and don't get overwhelmed by the big scope that you're trying to achieve. So I think that's wise advice.
And the only other thing I would leave with this one is the execution piece. Making sure that when we talk about reporting dashboards, that there is insights that can be leveraged for actually marketing optimizations, insight for business decisioning. You don't want to just work on a static dashboard. And we see those occurring on a continuous basis with clients, that they don't really log in because that information is, great, what am I going to do with this, right? It's not insightful. So data that you're going to get and you're putting up, make sure it's insightful, that you're actually executing against it, that you're actually taking the information, there's learnings from that now you're going to be able to go execute on from a marketing strategy, inventory management, and so on.
Yeah, and this is actually a valid point, is the making sure that it's not just selected few who have access to this, but that it becomes part of your decision making, so that everyone on your management team has access to that data and can inform decisions for everyone, not just for a specialist who have access to the dashboard. So just this should be broadly shared, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And get a buy-in, and get buy-in from teams, right? You want to make sure your executive team has buy-in, that they're going to be utilizing this data, and it's not just, oh yeah, it's great, it's there, and never really utilize it.
Yeah. So if you tackle all these inefficiencies, and you're becoming more efficient in what you do, what sort of results can you expect to see, Aaron?
So
what do you see with your clients?
So, everybody could put a number up, right? We're saying 7 to 26%, but I'll explain how we get to this number. And this is done over time, right? So we look at small to large clients that we work with, and identifying what type of savings we've created for them, or what scalability we created for them. And so this number is really derived from true analysis of what we've done for our clients. We go in and we can quickly identify where there is spend inefficiencies by platforms, by vendors, channels. Those are immediate savings. This isn't one of those that's going to take time, and over time we'll show you how we saved you money. These are very quick things we can come in and make those changes, or recommend for those changes to occur, that will create those savings. The longer term ones that start seeing over time are going to be things about scale. All right, so how do I scale my business? Well, that takes time, because there's a test and learn strategy. We believe that you've got to implement a test and learn strategy with any partner you work with or in-house. And so that test and learn will get you to that increased scalability and increased revenue and efficiency. So that range that we have here is truly built off of what we know we can immediately do from a cost saving standpoint, to what we know we can do over time, which is really help an entity scale. And so our engagements a lot of times will basically start off at, hey, I need this immediate thing. Tell me how I'm going to grow this. And then we just come in and advise. We'll work with our partners, or we'll work with the in-house team to make sure that they're on the right track. So think about it as kind of that supervisory level. And ultimately, it's to get to the entity to whatever that goal is from a business standpoint. If you're looking to exit, well, you want to make sure that your business looks good enough from a scalability standpoint. As I said, private equity is going to look at what else am I going to get out of this business? How else am I going to grow this? Even in a roll-up strategy, they're going to look at how do I get this thing to generate more? And you want to be able to, right out of the gate, have a conversation of, we know how to scale this. We've tested and learned into different channels, into new products or services. And this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, so super fascinating. I'm going to encourage anybody who has a question to drop it in the Q&A section. But while you're doing that, can you, what fascinates me and what I've always loved about marketing is that it's both a balance, it's balancing art and science. And I've been involved with digital marketing ever since it started. This is like a long time ago. And what I found, which was fascinating, is that we've really made huge progress in the science part with data, with digital marketing, with everything that's measurable. And so there's a lot of people out there who get attracted to what's measurable because it drives accountability. But can you talk a little bit about the balance between art and science from what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, right, a lot of the science component it's still not there in terms of the sophistication that it can be. But we do have a lot more insights now with data and performance, especially in the digital space where you can track every action, every dollar you spend, you can track if it's generating a result. Even when I mentioned the lower versus upper funnel and investing in things around video, which may not have an immediate return, you can set strategies to track the return on those over time, right? There's awareness studies, there is lift studies. So there's different, and those are not expensive, by the way, and some of them are free through the platforms. And so there's different components from a data standpoint. The art is where it's becoming really interesting because you have to stand out of the clutter. You can't develop the same message over and over or develop the same message as all your competitors because it fades, right? Especially in the digital space, there's so many advertisements that were put in front of us. Doesn't matter if you're on a website, you're on YouTube, there's always advertising. You've got to stand out. And the technology and the media itself is not going to do that. Even if you think you have perfect data targeting, you know exactly who to reach and you know exactly what you should be spending. It doesn't mean you're going to generate the results that you want. And we've seen really successful companies over time, and especially the direct-to-consumer who've evolved, is leveraging the art component of it, really, really honing in on the messaging down to that individual that they know is going to be buying their product. And they have hundreds to thousands of variations of messaging. And by the way, that sounds scary and expensive. It's not. It really is not today. That's the beauty of the technology, is that you can build one asset, one creative asset, and have 1,000 variations on it that will help you better improve your business. And so and by the way, there's technologies like Google has a PMax solution that is their AI variations, their AI solution that creates all these variations for you in search and display ads and video ads. And that's basically what it's doing. It's trying to find that balance between art and technology. It's still not there. That's a whole other conversation that we often, we see from clients. Oh, I'm going to put all my money in something like a PMax. It'll spend my money correctly. I will tell you that is not the case. So be cautious also taking entities like Google at their word. They tend to be more favorable to themselves. So they will get there. We are believers that their investments in AI are significant. They will achieve this goal of basically give us the dollars, we'll spend it efficiently. Today, they're not there, but you can already see the concept of art and science of taking messaging and data and technology and building out the messaging to an individual.
Yeah, great. No, it's great perspective. Thank you so much for leading us through your expertise of how to really minimize inefficiencies, optimize your marketing investments, and your wisdom. And this just been super helpful. I hope everyone who attended found it helpful. I think we're going to leave it there. We've covered a lot of ground, and I encourage you to reach out to Aaron and Matrix Point if you have further questions, and to think big, because marketing is one of the main levers for you to achieve these huge results. So thank you very much, Aaron, and we're going to leave it there.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Pascal.
All right.
Bye, everyone.